Let's now focus on the, as I told you earlier, the situation that these young children find themselves in, because as I said earlier on, up to the below 5 years, about 225, and then for between 5 and 11 years who are now in the early primary school, as well as, is it middle primary school, there are about 660 who are facing this, and of course the teenagers are about 852. Those are the statistics from your institution. So the question is, how difficult is it for these minors to understand what's happening to them? Maybe we'll start with you, Dr. Gitau.
Yeah, I have told you, if there is ignorance about knowing that have been sexually violated, actually that's why maybe you have a low number of the below 5 years. If there is no damage, it's never reported. If there is no physical damage to this child, you will also find that most parents also don't know how to check. And unless, again, it is shouting, that is when they know something has happened. So
even if, sorry to interject, because the question I'm asking is, how difficult is it for the minors themselves to understand that they have been assaulted? Do they even know what is happening to them?
Some of them don't know, because if they are big boys, for example, abusing the small boys, they use tricks. It could be even sweets, could be some gifts. And like the one, the feature story, you find even the way they started fondling him, even his language is talking about, they were doing to me the way we do the cow, or the way the cow is milked. So they have their stories to entice these young children. So these young children, what happens in the inside? We have an organismic self that tells you, I don't feel comfortable. But the child doesn't know, again, how to express it, especially when they are threatened. Don't say this, don't tell anybody about this game. So, and that can go on for a very long time if nobody notices.
Sure.
You may also have some children that are emotionally damaged, and especially the inter-sibling sexual violence. You realize, if I know I'm normally beaten by mom, and my bigger brother or bigger sister knows about this, they want to be the one to give me this care. And they can actually lure me to the parts of the home and tell me, just come, we have some comfort over here. And you'll find even in the homes where it happens in their bedrooms, it will happen even in the bathroom, that I'll come and wash you. So some of them don't know this. Sure. Believe you me, some adults have known they were sexually violated in adulthood. Oh, that is what it was. So that is why you may have that maybe a small number. The lower the age, and the higher the age, you realize, I know myself, I know that is not right, I have read that, I have been told that, so I can express myself. And the sad thing is that if you look at our generation, even for us, it's because now we are schooled. I think these things, like Odera has said, they used to happen.
Sure. Even
sexual violence in schools by students against students. The primary school, it used to happen. You have gone to the toilet, and somebody wants to walk away with your panty, or this pupil wants to also make sure that you are embarrassed in front of the others. That is emotionally, sexually being violated. But who knows this? Until we have a physical injury, or what we are calling physical evidence, it is when we shout. So sad. And
so, Alberta, when you have a child, be they 2 years, be they 17 years, what are the characteristics to look out for, so that you can tell from a parent's point of view, from a guardian's point of view, that your child might be going through some difficulty that needs your attention?
Okay, great. So just let me just add a bit to what Dr. Susan was talking about. One of the reasons why it's difficult for children to come out is because about 68% of the alleged perpetrators are known to the survivors and mention, and they'll mention them when they come for treatment. A further about 20, they would know but not mention. So in short, the people who abuse the children are known to the children. So they're a bit confused. There also may be sometimes threats that are used. If you report this, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill your mother, and things like that. Another reason why it's difficult for children sometimes to report is the relationship that we have with our kids. It's as earlier when I found the conversation going on, is that nitakuchapa ndio useme, you know, so kids are a bit scared. Sure. We have to nurture the relationship that we have with them. Second, again, very few of us have discussions on sexual reproductive health and rights with our children. We do not tell our children, for example, that this is your body, this is how it grows, no, I should touch you here. So some of them do not realize it's violence. Now, back to your question, which was, what are some of the telltale signs? Partly what you can tell, for example, is when children have sex language or sex actions that are inappropriate for their age. So, for example, once we receive a child who would be inserting sticks to her vagina, you know, because she had been reportedly abused, or you'd have regression behavior in some children where, for example, they would start bedwetting, or school performance would suddenly just drop. Some of the issues would be, for example, they start talking with a gait, or they start talking about nasikia uchungu kwa pupu, or susu, or you have discharges that are explained. Sometimes you have kids who would get gifts that are unexplained. So, for example, a child keeps coming home with mandazis, with sweets, umepatiwa na nani na uncle flani, you know, just for no reasons. Sometimes you have some of the children who cannot, would I say, account for where they were. You know, they're a bit scared, where suddenly they start coming home late and things like that. Others start getting very emotional. They'd suddenly just start crying for no reasons. Others would have separation anxiety. When someone really close to them, like a family member, for example, is leaving, they start having this clinging behavior. Just some of the signs that we see.
Before we come to you, Tony, we want to look at feedback that we are receiving from you, the viewers, who are writing to us on 22422, as well as on Twitter, Citizen TV Kenya. And the first one has to do with an anonymous who says that I have an incident. A girl in a grade school, the stepdad is hitting on her. She can't trust the mom and relative. The last time he tried, the girl ran away. She opened up to me. She needs help. The mom too, but the mom seems to take sides with the stepdad. Right, of course, you can see that talking about situations happening at home, the situation of a stepfather and a mother. Then a tweet, we have Liz Mbete saying that what are the signs to look out for to be able to tell a child has been abused, especially little babies below ages 3.5 and whose speech is not fully developed? I think we attempted to respond to that, but just to give you a very short minute, if that can happen, for children below 3.5 years, 3.5 years, how do you tell? Because these are children who may not be out there in schools and
still at home.
Still at home. So part of them would be the regression behavior, unexplained changing behavior, like the clinging behavior. But the best part would be, at any point we suspect, to be good to just take them to a health facility, because then they can have a medical examination done. They can also have therapy done. There's also therapy that can be done for small babies, and then you're able to tell whether the child is being abused. For me, that would be the best solution.
Right. Sure. And you want to say something?
I want to
add,
add,
go ahead.
and most importantly, if it's because this child is at home, most of them, it's good to observe their interaction. If the other siblings in that house, check how they are interacting. If there is a house help in that house, check the interaction. Because if I cannot express myself what's happening to me, I will actually do it non-verbally, which we miss most of the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Tony, looking at that question from an anonymous viewer, saying that there is a stepfather who is sort of hitting her, so I would assume that is trying to lure her. Yes. These are situations that obviously happen, but what are the options that these kind of victims have in as far as the justice system is concerned, accessing the people who can help them, people like you?
Now, when we look at the question that is coming from the viewer, we're talking about sexual advances, and I could even escalate it to indecent assault or indecent behavior. And this is happening in the home environment. Key things start sending signals, talking stepdad, not talking biological dad. Red alert, something is gonna be amiss here. And then we have a child victim in the center. And on the other side, we have mommy. So that then the allegation is mommy sides with stepdad. Why? Because we're talking about maybe the basic survival of this household now is dependent on this man here. And this man is using that to be able to now abuse the relationship between the child they're supposed to have protected and be protecting, simply because it's not their biological child, to make advances on here. Now, if legal intervention and psychosocial support intervention is going to come in here, something is going to give way. Something is going to give way. Why? Because when we look at this environment, it's an abusive environment. The abuser needs to leave for the sake of the victim continuing their life. The abuser needs to leave. If the abuser has to leave, what is the relationship that is going to be there between the mother of this child and also the abuser? So that either the mother will feel that because this child has said this, it's the reason why now we're getting these separate ways, I cannot be able to take care of this child. Then we need to look at what are the other support systems available for this child. Do we have aunties and uncles who have direct relation, either maternal or paternal, with this child, that will be able to be assuming the role of a caregiver for this child for purposes of safeguarding them now from this abuse? And how would legal intervention kick in? Now, one, this becomes a child who is in need of care and protection. And we have mechanisms of filing up a separate case in the children's court to be able to seek protective orders, such as exclusion of the stepfather from that household. He still bears the responsibilities of paying the rent, paying the school fees, but he's not residing there. Sure. So we can take that measure and remove him from that premises. In the alternative, we could also be able to take now measures under the victim assistance and witness protection for the child themselves, so that we are able to place this child with someone else who is able to assure them about their safety and hold the two parents responsible for providing the basics that are required for that child. Then on the third avenue, we're looking at criminal sanction, because many a times people forget the aspect that indecent assault, indecent exposure is also a sexual offense that is punishable also under the law by terms of 8-12 years imprisonment. So we say because he did not rape her, he's not done anything wrong. But attempts themselves are also criminalized. So when we look at it like that, then we ought to now begin activating criminal justice mechanism to be able to take measures against this gentleman for this vice that is perpetrating. And many other people out there are doing this. Yes.
I have two questions, but first, what's wrong with such kind of an offender, that stepfather? What's wrong with them psychologically? Are they just being criminals, or is there something just wrong?
Well, if I married your mother, it is expected that it's her I wanted. And if I have married her with you as the daughter, then automatically, if I am normal, and by this I emphasize normal, and functional, I should take her as my daughter. Sure. So we do have cases of where people say they are in very mature relationships, but they are not. I've handled people over 40, even 50, and you look at the way they reason, the way they look at situations and relationships, and you're like, wow, this is very wanting. We also do have a situation in this country that is very, very silent, because only a few people have been able to come up, just like the drug addicts, and have accepted. We do have a problem with maybe controlling our sexual impulse. We do have such people, and they will not only go at their stepdaughters, they will go after their own daughters. We also have women. Anyway, I don't want to lean on one side for men. We also have women. So you realize, if I have such kind of a spouse, and it's easier when they know this is not my biological daughter, they will definitely defile her. And these are some of the things that you realize people are hooking up, getting married. I have my own children, you have your own children, or you don't have, I have. But we don't even go through counseling to look at ourselves, have that premarital counseling session, and know how is it going to affect our relationship. I have a daughter here who is an adult, who is a teenager, who happens. You know, people should talk openly, because when you see this tweet here, that person, that is just one case that has come to us right now. There are actually very many cases. So what we are telling people, if you realize you have a problem, it is not cowardly to ask for help. Sure. These men who have sexaholic behavior, believe you me, it is masked by so many things. And when they are near children, minors, those minors are not safe. But who knows this? You realize most people don't want to talk about it, because if I talk about my husband, that he's actually hitting on my daughter, what will the society think about me? Let them know that it could actually be an illness that goes beyond you. They need to be helped.
Sure. And Alberta, I know you have something to say about that, but I want to ask you a different question.
Yes, sure.
That now this child, this minor who has been taken through this and has had that assault, and maybe they got help or they didn't, how difficult is it for them to really, in their psychological development, to really mature and recover from that kind of situation, from your experience?
So it's possible to get psychological healing, but of course there are different things that come into play. One, Tom talked about support systems, so that really matters, the support systems in place. So for example, at GVSE, as much as we'd work with the children, we'd also work with the parents or the guardians to be able to provide that support beyond just the support that we're giving at the center. That's both the medical and psychosocial support. It's also dependent on how we naturally, for example, manage stress. It's also dependent on the environment. Do we put someone then in a safe environment, or do they continue staying in an unsecure or feeling really threatened environment? So for example, when the children are abused and brought to our center and to any of our centers, and they're brought either by a late perpetrator or they're still unsafe, would get them away from that environment, of course using legal support and legal means. So it's dependent on a number of factors. If, for example, the perpetrator had a hold of them in terms of providing the basic survival, for example, education and all that, you want to make sure that they continuously are able to get that. Now, one thing I need to mention is that beyond the medical treatment, the psychological trauma is usually the hardest. We've seen survivors who were abused 10 or more years back. You know, they abused when they're 11 years, and they would come to us at 28 years. We'd have, recently we got a man who was 23, was brought in by the father, never told anyone, but were abused way, you know, when they were around 10 years or so. So that psychosocial support, I would want to say that it doesn't have an end to it. Yes, you'll provide support to a certain extent. You don't want to create dependency, but it's also open, so that then at whatever point you feel that you need psychosocial support, you'd always come into ourselves or to any of the institutions that provide that and get that support.
Great. And as we wind up, because time is running out on us, let's talk specifically about the situations in schools, because now this story that Kandi and Saida run or that produced, it talks about minors who are molested in schools. And you have schools that are managed by teachers. There's a head teacher, a deputy head teacher, and then a series of teachers who are responsible for certain classes. But you also know that in almost every other school, there's a teacher who's in charge of guidance and counseling. How possible is it for these professionals to deal with such kind of incidents, so that even if the children are afraid of reporting to their parents, at least they can trust their teachers?
So I always say there's always a way out, even when the Teacher Service Commission, or rather the Ministry of Education at large, has not fully implemented the guidance and counseling departments in schools. The teachers who have been assigned those roles, can we empower them? Can we have capacity building for them? Because very few people actually think about children. We think about an individual mostly when they are 10 years and above. So can we have them being given the training that is specific to the child, and especially this one on handling sexual violence? If we are also talking about the Ministry of Education having a challenge on the number of trained counselors, can they have maybe one who is professionally trained manning like 5 schools? Can we also be very, very creative? Even when a child doesn't come to me directly, can we have strategies within the school environment where this child can communicate to the school community that something is not right with me? For example, when we're talking about the peace clubs in this nation in schools, you find either the school has a peace tree, a peace corner. Can we also be creative to those children who are emotionally damaged, such that they can be followed up? Can we also empower the systems? Like I talk about the local administration, that is where the cases are first reported at the chief's office. Can we also have them being manned? These community health workers that people have in every village, every estate, can we have them be equipped with basic basic counseling skills that can help them assess a sexually violated child, because they actually walk around and nobody knows until it's too late, until they smell coming out of their private parts, until there's blood oozing out, until they go see a doctor, and then you are surprised. Actually, some of the children that are abroad, they come and say, imagine we went to the doctor, we were not even believing. So can we have them being given the skills that are needed? And I'm happy because at the Nazarene University, I pushed. We are now having a master's program in child and adolescent counseling. Sure. When I realized in the course of my practice, even the adolescents, nobody wants to listen to them. The children, as they talk, an adult is more hard than a child. So can we also have institutions that are also building capacity, do the right thing? I always look at GVRC and I say, can we also have a private public partnership? Because if you have a private institution that can help come up with trauma centers, this is my dream for this nation. Sure. Because as Alberta has told you, they can give them food, they can give them the legal redress, but you cannot heal an individual who has been psychologically damaged, especially for a long period of time, within a short time. What if they can have a place I don't have to pay? I don't have to be asked for money because I'm poor, but can I be helped to live a normal life? And our children, to me, I say they are our future. If we don't take care of them, tomorrow it's us to cry.
And Tony, your closing remarks in as far as the success rate. I know you talked about these challenges that these victims will face in court when the scheduling of cases is concerned. But what is the success rate, at least what you've observed during your practice, where such kind of cases go through to conviction?
When we talk about success rate, and allow me to add another interesting perspective to the whole of this debate, because we'll talk about professionals, but are we having professionals who have skills and are able to deal with children as well? So we need to equip people with child-friendly and child approaches skills to help with this, because even me as a lawyer, I can assure you I've gone through several series of training to be able to deal with children. And when you find me interacting with children, you even forget whether I am a lawyer or someone totally different. So for success rates, where we have participated with the victim from the word go, I can always assure you success is guaranteed. And why do I say success is guaranteed? Because where one person looks at an offense and comes up with one charge, I can be able to look at the same offense and come up with 3 or 4 possible different counts of offense that one incident has actually been able to generate. And when we take a matter in court where one accused person is facing like 4 different counts. Let me give you the example of this scenario that has been shared online. We would have this gentleman be charged with causing a child to be in need of care and protection. Offense number 1. Offense number 2, indecent exposure. Offense number 3, abuse of position of authority in relation to the child. If medical evidence show that he's actually been able even to cause an act that causes penetration to this child, will have the offense of defilement. 4 different counts. He's not going to walk out of all those 4 free. He's going to get a conviction on at least 2, if not all. So again, working with lawyers to watch brief is also very important. And let me echo that the Law Society of Kenya has a children law committee that deals with these issues. And this committee, whenever matters are raised before it, it's able to nominate a pro bono lawyer, a member of LSK, to provide legal support to this child and their family as they go through this. And this would be a good initiative to also help. And also we have law firms running private practice in this country that offer pro bono services. Everybody is willing to do something to help the cause for children better. So for me, I would only say, we've talked about children. Let's remember there are children with disabilities as well. And children with disabilities within the same scenario is going to be even more traumatic, more difficult. We need to go back as a nation to secure the future of these children. And since the Children's Act provides that children have a right to protection, the state must do more. The parents whom we are must do more. It's everybody's responsibility, can't be left to one person.
All right, great. That's a good way to end it. Thank you so much for joining us on Citizen Extra to talk about the rights of our children. Tony Odera, an advocate of child rights, Dr. Susan Getao, a counseling psychologist, and also a lecturer at African Nazarene University.